All right, hello everyone. Tyler King here alongside Vinny Benedetto with the Denver Gazette after the Nuggets. I don't even know what the final score is in here, Vinny. A 119-114 loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves here in Game 2. A very frantic, wild, I don't know what adjective you want to use to describe this Game 2. It's kind of what we've come to expect between these two teams at this point in the postseason. Nuggets built a 19-point lead in the first half. It was erased by halftime,
They fell behind by 8 before
yeah, I was going to say, the
halftime.
Wolves had built an 8-point lead, and then the Nuggets tied it back up with a 8-0 run going into the break. Nuggets built another lead, but the Wolves battled their way back, and we've come to expect them outperforming the Nuggets in the fourth quarter in some of these series. That was the big key 2 years ago. Obviously, the 20-point comeback in Game 7, the big fourth quarter in that game. Just what's your big takeaway? I mean, the Nuggets' clutch time performance was not nearly up to par. Their defense wasn't great, and Nikola Jokic admitted he probably should have taken that floater late. I mean, Jamal Murray takes a puzzling long two, down three, under 30 seconds to go. Just kind of how do you make sense of kind of what we just saw here tonight?
Yeah, I think there are just a lot of lessons for Denver to be learned from this one. I think it can start with David Edelman. Like, I think both of those challenges were like kind of low upside ones,
Yeah.
and then you end up in a point where I think they had 2 timeouts left with like 9 minutes to play, and then you look down at the final, sequences. I think Jamal, went 1 of 6 from the field in the fourth quarter. I think Joker might have been 1 for 7, something in there. And so I think some of that you can chalk up to fatigue. Because it does feel like the Nuggets are just having to work so much harder to get into their offense with some of the full court pressure Minnesota's been using. And like I think you wrote about kind of that the small ball lineup that gave the Nuggets a really tough time in the second quarter. So I think there are a few different things that you can, if you're the Nuggets, that you can kind of hone in on and say, for us to have a chance to get out of this series, we've got to do a few things a whole lot better.
It was an excellent first half for Jamal Murray, who finishes with 30 points in the game. It was a very quiet first half for Nikola Jokic. I think he had 6 points at the break. He had 14, or I think it's 16 points 16 in the third quarter, finishes with 24. Neither guy ends with kind of really an efficient day. Neither got to the free throw line all that much. Jamal only shot 2 after shooting 16 the other day. That was a big talking point before the game. It just felt like those guys were starting to run out of gas. Like you mentioned, fatigue a little bit. They both play over 40 minutes. Jamal played close to 30 minutes tonight. They only got didn't even get 3 minutes out of Jonas Valanciunas. Bruce Brown played a decent amount. Tim Hardaway Jr. played close to 28 minutes, but it just feels like we're at the same point we've been at a lot of these Nuggets playoff runs, where already very early in the postseason, the coaching staff is having to ride the starting five for large chunks of the game.
Yeah, and I just don't know what you got to do with the non-Jokic minutes, because I think you asked David Edelman pregame. Game 1, the first half Jonas minutes were good, second half not so good, and then today getting the hook after 3 minutes is going to be tough. And
didn't play them in the second half. They went with AG at the 5, and the Wolves really exploited that. We talked about you mentioned the small ball lineup that really worked well for the Wolves in the second quarter. Well, they go super big to start the fourth quarter with Naz Reid and Rudy Gobert both out there against a front court of Spencer Jones and Aaron Gordon, and it was basically a layup line or a dunk line to the rim if you want. With Naz Reid had a couple vicious throwdowns. I think Dante DiVincenzo was going to the rim pretty hard. Bones Highland as well. I mean, it just felt like the Wolves had more answers than the Nuggets did for kind of whatever the adjustments that came in inevitably in a game 2.
Yeah, and I don't think, have we said Anthony Edwards' name yet?
Not yet, no.
And really, I think a really, really impressive display of toughness from Anthony Edwards. I think there was a moment in the first quarter where I thought he was going to have to leave the game for a minute, messing with that right knee. But he's
even got the lower back heating pad on. It's when he comes back into the game in the fourth quarter, he's taking multiple heating pads off, trying to get himself ready for what was a pretty impressive stretch. He played 40, almost exactly 40 minutes. I thought he was going to play more. I thought he was going to play the entire fourth quarter. Given how much time they were able to steal at the end of the third. But, you mentioned how well he played. He had 30 points as well. Not super efficient, but and didn't have nearly the assist total he had in game 1. But felt like he understood what was needed of him tonight for Minnesota's. And it's Julius Randle as well, another guy we haven't mentioned. Both those guys, I thought, and they talked about this postgame, were really assertive in trying to be the offensive hubs that the Wolves needed it for large stretches of this one.
I think Julius probably kind of unsung hero
Yeah.
for them after his game one performance. And then you mentioned Bones a bit. Like when he wasn't fouling, he was knocking down threes. And I'm sure
Just a wild stat line for him tonight.
I'm sure Bones enjoyed a few of those moments quite a bit.
Yeah, he was. It was. I wasn't sure if he was going to come back in at all in the second half after how really up and down his first stint was. He didn't play in the second half in game one. It feels like Chris Finch was still kind of working out what the rotations were. But I mean, he goes back to Kyle Anderson at times. Mike Conley only plays a little bit, but there was a lot of Ayo Dosunmu I thought who played pretty well. I mean, just what needs to change for Denver for you going forward in the series? As it is 1-1, it's not the end of the world. Obviously, right. They played well to close out game one, and they earned that win. But now, like we said, they threw away a 19-point lead in a second in the second quarter, and then weren't able to close another one out, getting outscored by 8 in the fourth quarter. Just what has to change for this team to kind of get over them, or is it just this is just kind of what we should expect for the rest of the series and expect a longer one like we're used to with these two teams?
Yeah, there was a moment tonight I thought it was trending toward, a 5-game series maybe in Denver's favor, but I think they just got to figure out ways to get Nikola Jokic more involved, whether it's, because through 2 games, it feels like the Timberwolves have had pretty good success with Rudy going one-on-one against him and making him more deferential. And then
I think he was 1 for 8 from the field tonight when Rudy was on the floor. Okay. I think was what I saw after the game, and he was whatever he was. Otherwise, I think he was 7 for 14 or something like that. He was much more efficient when Rudy was off the floor.
Yeah, and then he's in both of these games, he's picked moments where he's been really aggressive. Third quarter tonight, I think after Rudy picks up his 4th, is when Joker really got going. And so, it just feels like, and it's always kind of this give and take game where it's like, okay, he finishes with 25, 15, and 8. Yeah. It's hard to say like, oh, you need more, but the Nuggets need more. Yeah. They need him to be the best player in the world to I think get out of this. And so I think it's going to come down to picking their spots where they're just force feeding him and kind of making him be the best offensive player in the world.
Last thing I wanted to mention, because we haven't mentioned his name at all yet, Aaron Gordon has had a pretty quiet series so far. I thought he played pretty well in the second half of game one after dealing with some early foul trouble. Obviously spent the entire second quarter, very rare seeing him sit the entire second quarter of game one. But tonight, shot wasn't there. I think, he was one of the many people Jaden McDaniel said after the game was a bad defender on the Nuggets. I don't know if Aaron will take too kindly that, but he was only a +8, or he was a -1 in the game. Sorry, only at 8 points. Just what have you seen from Aaron? Obviously, he's still maybe trying to work himself back into the game shape and playing this heavy minute load. He was close to 37 minutes tonight, but it just feels like there's too many times during games where he's a little bit invisible.
Yeah, and I think, some of that is probably coming from him having to take on more ball handling responsibilities because, the Timberwolves has done this for a few years where they're just going to, they're going to pressure Jamal the length of the court. And the Nuggets are just trying to find the path of least resistance in terms of getting the ball into the front court and getting into their offense. So I think Aaron taking on some of those responsibilities is draining him a little bit. And then he's also a guy that carries a lot of defensive responsibility for this team. So I think, to your point, I don't know if his conditioning is fully there or, if he's operating at 100% health. I don't think anyone probably is at this point. But it seems like his limitations have been a little bit more obvious.
All right, that'll do it from us here from Ball Arena. Vinny will be in Minneapolis later this week for games 3 and 4 at the Target Center. Vinny, you and Mark Isla have the full coverage from the Nuggets side. I've got the Timberwolves side. We'll have more in the days leading up to game 3. So stay tuned for all of that. Make sure to go to denvergazette.com for all of our coverage. And we'll be back, at least Vinny and I will be for game 5 because there will be one next Monday night here at Ball Arena.
Did you hear what time that starts?
No, I did not.
It's another 8:30 tip.
All right, well, we're going to get ready for another late night of deadlines. Not that it affects any of you, but, with us here in the media world, our small world problems, but, they are problems for us.